The mothership Covenant waited on the South Atlantic, a cathedral of steel against an infinite horizon.
She was built to wrestle treasures from depths that would crush conventional vessels. For 11 days, they had been anchored over coordinates born from tragedy and legend.
In 1878, the Empress Adelaide vanished here. No distress signal, no survivors, no wreckage.
Now, in the pre-dawn dark, their key to the abyss awaited. The submersible Orpheus.
A crew of 3 moved through final preparations with the efficiency of ritual. The ship's master winch engaged with a deep, mechanical groan. The descent began.
The first 100 feet held familiar cathedral light. Then the ocean began to change.
Below 200 feet, the light failed, shifting to a twilight that seemed to emanate from the water itself.
Bioluminescent life flashed brief greetings, constellations in a realm of permanent dusk.
At 3,000 feet, the hull creaked, a reminder of the immense, invisible pressure now surrounding them.
The cold seeped in. Outside, the water was near freezing. The weight of the ocean was now a physical presence.
Then came darkness absolute. Not blackness, but the utter absence of light.
They passed through alien zones. Creatures adapted to eternal darkness and crushing pressure drifted by.
At 18,000 feet, their sonar began to paint the seafloor. An utterly alien landscape awaited. Somewhere in that desolate beauty lay their target, waiting for a century and a half.
At 21,800 feet, they activated the forward lights. The abyss recoiled. She lay broken, a monument to disaster transformed by time into an archaeological relic. Their target was the strong room, a reinforced compartment meant to protect a fortune in diamonds.
Orpheus approached the most damaged section. The strong room was buried under a chaos of twisted metal.
The challenge was immediate. Access required surgical removal of tons of collapsed structure. They began with plasma torches, cutting through history and corrosion with millimeter precision.
A rhythm established itself across days. Descent, excavation, recovery.
On the 8th dive, the sonar pattern changed. They had reached the strong room's ceiling.
The lights penetrated the space, and within
The diamonds had survived. A Victorian fortune, glittering in a tomb of pressure and cold. No words were needed. The mission's heart now lay illuminated before them. The recovery required new tools. Baskets were lowered, 4 miles of cable spooling into the dark.
Orpheus guided each basket,
filling it with careful loads of treasure and seafloor. Each basket took 7 hours to raise, an achingly slow ascent from the abyss.
On deck, the material that emerged was barely recognizable. Promise, hidden within tons of deep-sea muck.
But there, amidst the sediment, were the first tangible pieces of the fortune.
The deck transformed into a processing facility. Washing, filtering, sorting. The pile of stones grew.
Meticulous cleaning revealed each stone. Like sculptures emerging from stone, their internal fire awakened. Days blurred. The work was repetitive, meditative. The fortune accumulated, container by container.
On the 21st day, the final batch was processed. The ship fell into a profound, earned silence. The team gathered in the ship's vault.
Before them lay the complete yield of the abyss.
Industrial stones by the millions of carats. Gemstones by the 100. A fortune resurrected.
But the centerpieces were 12 individual stones. Raw crystals of extraordinary size and purity. They stood without speaking. The sheer scope of their accomplishment settled over them with physical weight. This was more than money. It was a victory over one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Eventually, they departed. Work remained, but the core objective was complete. The impossible made manifest. The deep sea had yielded its fortune, reluctantly but completely, and the silence held the weight of that accomplishment like a prayer. The morning after, the Covenant prepared for her journey home. The deck, once a hive of industry, was now orderly and still. With a final survey complete, the anchor was raised. The mothership began to move, leaving the coordinate behind.
Far below, the wreck of the Empress Adelaide was left to the darkness. Her secret was gone. Life at the abyss would reclaim the site. In time, it would become indistinguishable from the geology itself.
Orpheus, their mechanical emissary, was serviced. Her hull bore the fresh scars of a hard-won battle.
In the meth, meals were no longer fuel for imminent work, but a time for quiet reflection.
The pilot replayed the descents in his mind. The moments of absolute darkness, the first sight of the wreck.
That first flash of light on stone, in a place light was never meant to be.
A simple, coded message was sent. It would trigger a chain of events in boardrooms and evaluation labs across the globe.
The assets are moving into position in the Zaitsev sector. We anticipate minimal resistance.
The journey home was a decompression, a slow return from the psychological pressure of the deep. The salvage specialist studied the names of those lost, a moment of respect for the original tragedy.
The vault was under constant guard. The stones slept under watchful eyes, their journey nearly complete.
Under a dome of stars, the ship felt both immense and insignificant, a speck.
Every system had performed. From the massive winch to the smallest thruster on Orpheus, engineering had met the abyss and held.
Life returned to the surface world. Dolphins escorted them.
a stark contrast to the alien life of the deep.
They began the long process of documentation. Every dive, every basket, every stone would be meticulously logged. The abyss had changed them. It was no longer just a place of work, but an experience etched into their being.
But with each sunrise, the world of light and air reclaimed them a little more.
On the 10th day, the first hint of land. The long isolation of the open ocean was ending. Civilization, a world unaware of the treasure sailing toward it, recovered from a depth it could scarcely comprehend.
Prepare for escort arrival in 2 hours.
Security protocols activated. Their return would not be anonymous. The cargo demanded a discreet but formidable reception.
An escort cutter appeared, a silent guardian for the final leg of the journey.
They merged back into the world's maritime traffic. Just another ship on another voyage.
In the vault, the final inventory was sealed. The numbers were staggering, yet now just a logistical fact.
Their final destination was not a public dock, but a high-security private terminal. Their final destination was...
A waiting team stood by. The transition from sea to land would be swift and controlled.
The Covenant docked. For the first time in weeks, she was still connected to the unmoving Earth.
For the crew, it was a moment of parting. The unique bond forged in the deep would now loosen.
The transfer began. Container by container, the Fortune moved from the ship's hold to the armored trucks.
Every movement was tracked, logged, and watched. The chain of custody was absolute. The trucks departed, disappearing into the port's secure network. Just like that, the treasure was gone.
A strange void followed. Their purpose, so consuming for weeks, had literally been driven away.
One by one, they walked down the gangway. The ground felt unnaturally still beneath their feet.
For the pilot, Orpheus was still aboard. He would return, but it would never be for this same purpose.
The debriefing was clinical. They recounted facts, figures, and technical details. The emotion was left outside the door.
They signed the final papers. Legally, the mission was now a closed file, a story they could tell only in vague terms.
The Covenant sat in her berth, resting. Her part in the story was over, for now.
They shared a drink, not a celebration, but an acknowledgement. They spoke of everything except what they had just done.
In the morning, they scattered to the winds, back to their separate lives, carrying a shared secret.
The pilot would return to an office, to simulators and planning. But a part of him would always be descending.
Meanwhile, the diamonds began their own transformation. From recovered artifacts to graded, valued commodities. The Adelaide Star was examined with reverence. Its clarity, its size, its history made it unique in the world. Months later, the Adelaide Star found its place in a different kind of vault. Its value was now both monetary and mythical.
Selected buyers were given private viewings. They were not just purchasing a gem, but a piece of an epic story.
A story of human endeavor against impossible odds. a victory plucked from the crushing dark.
The public story was sanitized. A historic recovery, yes, but the terrifying depths. The team followed the news from afar. The sail was their mission's final, formal echo in the world.
Orpheus descended once more with a new crew. The abyss was always waiting. The cycle began anew. The deep sea never reveals all its secrets at once.
And far below, on the abyssal plain, the final chapter was one of quiet return.
A select few stones found a different path, not to market, but to museums. Pieces of the story made public.
For the public, it was a tale of mystery and treasure, a glimpse into the romance of the deep, sanitized of its peril.
The salvage specialist attempted to write it down for himself. The words felt inadequate to describe the weight of that darkness.
Some experiences defy linear narrative. They exist as sensory fragments, images etched by adrenaline and focus.
Some return to the surface world completely, seeking the sun and the wind, as far from the crushing depth as possible.
Her hands remembered a different kind of tension, the precise pressure of a joystick controlling a claw 4 miles down.
In boardrooms, the mission was a line item, a spectacularly successful venture. The human element was not on the spreadsheet.
But a few in the chain understood. They had seen the crew's faces upon return. They knew the price was not only monetary.
The pilot found a new sky, but his gaze was always drawn downward, mapping the unseen world beneath the waves.
The call of the next discovery was constant. There were always more secrets.
Other recoveries held value beyond gemstones. The nodules were records of Earth's ancient oceans, holding clues millions of years old.
The Covenant was cleansed of the mission. Her hull was scraped and painted, ready to write a new story on a blank steel page.
Ships, like people, carry their history internally, in reinforced frames.
Back aboard the Covenant, the vault stood empty, a silent chamber that had briefly held the density of a century's lost fortune.
New crew members would hear whispers, legends of the Adelaide run. They would wonder what it felt like to stand in this room when it was full.
The work never ends. Other ships, other teams now took up the mantle. The frontier of the deep is endlessly beckoning.
Inspired by the Covenant's success, new expeditions were funded. The lesson was clear. The impossible was now possible.
The mission's legacy rippled outward. It advanced technology, inspired new research, and redefined the limits of recovery.
The memories had their own soundscape, a quiet symphony of hydraulics, sonar pings, and the profound silence of the abyss.
A stone, once lost to unimaginable pressure and time, trances in the light.
Its story is no longer one of burial, but of recovery, of a return to the world.
Legends grew in the quiet hours. New recruits listened, wide-eyed, to tales of the Adelaide run from the old hands.
The details were passed down, not just the triumph, but the tension, the cold, the sound of the hull adjusting to the weight of an ocean.
She remembered watching the numbers climb, each digit a step further from any possibility of rescue if things went wrong.
Was any victims?
The user prompt explicitly states, audio, silence kit, and the audio description confirms silent.
For some, the experience integrated slowly. It became a lens through which they saw the world.
Everything held a story of descent and transformation. A stone, a shell, a person.
The diamonds continued their journeys, fanning out across the globe, each stone becoming a centerpiece in a new, private history.
Their value was now multi-layered. Beauty, rarity, and the unspoken narrative of resurrection from a sunken world.
In small ways, the recovery solved a historical mystery. A line in a ledger was finally accounted for, 147 years later.
The gap between tragedy and discovery was bridged by technology and will. The past was not always lost. The knowledge was institutionalized. New pilots trained on simulations built from the data of the Adelaide dives.
Reset. Feel the water density. It's not air.
The abyss forgives nothing, he would say, but it teaches everything about precision, about patience.
Technology evolved. New tools, more agile, more capable, born from the lessons learned in the crushing dark.
The captains and crews changed, but the essential challenge remained: to be a visitor in a world not meant for visitors.
They're not just treasures of man, but treasures of the earth itself.
The true fortune of the deep was revealing itself to be biological and geological, a living library under pressure.
The mission left its marks, some physical, most psychological. Annual checkups included questions about night terror.
Or seas.
Any recurring dreams about enclosed spaces? About water?
Only about wide open ocean. For her,
Some sought contrast. The fragility of petals, the certainty of soil, the open sky.
She understood she was not buying a gem, but becoming the next custodian of a story that spanned continents, centuries, and the full depth of an ocean.
He would sit for hours, they said, not seeing a diamond, but seeing the depth, the darkness, the incredible journey upward.
The stone became a prism. It refracted not just light, but the entire epic of its recovery.
From the cosmic perspective, it was nothing. A speck. A minute adjustment in the mass of the seafloor.
And in the enduring dark, the wreck slept on.
Pieces of the wreck were preserved for the public. Not the treasure, but the touchstones, the ordinary objects that survived the extraordinary journey.
The story became a lesson in engineering, in history, in the sheer scale of the unexplored world beneath the waves.
For the next generation, it was an inspiration. A proof that the map still held blank spaces waiting for curious minds.
He understood that some stories are not for telling. They are for knowing, quietly, that they were done, and done well.
The pilot sought movement, speed, horizon lines. An attempt to outrun the memory of the slow, vertical, lightless descent.
But the ocean's voice was everywhere. A constant reminder that its quietest depths were its most powerful.
From the ultimate height, the ocean's secrets were perfectly concealed. Its depths were a greater mystery than the surface of Mars.
She knew the final frontier was not just above, but below. The inner space of their own world, still largely unknown.
She traded joysticks for tillers, virtual depth for a pond's shallows. The principle was the same.
The stones began their final transformation, from recovered crystal to finished gem.
This was the moment of risk and revelation, to unlock the fire within, without shattering the legacy it carried.
The journey ended where it began, in a record. A stone, a number, a story.